1959. I was in the 8th grade at a parochial school, and on Sunday evenings I was part of a teenage bowling league. I looked very forward to that because Sunday evenings were usually boring, and so the league started at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And as we were progressing with the season, it came to be about the 4th or 5th week, and I noticed a fellow that was bowling 5 or 6 alleys away from us, and I actually never saw him before, did not know his name, but immediately I knew that I wanted to know his name and I wanted to know who he was. So I asked a mutual friend, and that mutual friend told me that his name was John Triska. And so after bowling, we always went to a little soda shop, and everyone went there, and it was kind of like a gathering place for teenagers. And there we were, and my friend took the time to introduce me to John. And from that time, I told him who I was. He had no idea who I was or that I lived in the area. And as it turned out to be, we lived about 3 blocks away from each other. He, however, went to a different high school than I did. So when I graduated from parochial school in 1959, I went on to Mount Carmel, and he went on to Central High School. However, we did stay in contact with each other via the telephone, and I did see him on weekends, and we formed a very nice friendship. And from that friendship, things kind of progressed, and we decided that we would be boyfriend and girlfriend. And that was in 1960 when I was a freshman in high school. From there, we dated each other quite steadily, even though we were both in different schools. We both had different interests, but some way, somehow, things always stayed that the two of us were together. And I had ideas in about 1962 that maybe that would be the man I would spend the rest of my life with, and as it turned out, it was. In 1965, on my birthday, June 9th, I received a diamond ring, and I was probably the happiest girl in the country that night. And from there on, we started to make some marriage plans. It was a little bit difficult because the Vietnam War was in full swing, and we knew that his chances of being drafted were very great. John and I chose a date for our wedding. It was August 28th. I very badly wanted to get married on Labor Day weekend due to the fact that my grandmother was married on Labor Day and my mom and dad were married on Labor Day. However, the date at the church was not available, so we got married a week ahead of Labor Day. We had a very beautiful wedding. There were 250 people at our reception, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And sure enough, it wasn't 3 weeks after our marriage that the draft papers were in the mail, and John got drafted to serve in the United States Army because it was wartime. I had great support from John's family and great support from my family. I, at the time, early in our marriage, became pregnant, and I was pregnant with a little girl who was born on June 9th of 1966. During that time, John was deployed and wasn't home very much. I would see him about every 8th or 9th weekend. And it was difficult because our little girl was growing and doing a lot of new things, and he kind of missed out on all of that. However, once the war finished, he came home. He obtained a good job, we had a good living, and we were very fortunate. We actually, to tell you the truth, did not own an automobile at that time. Not everybody did. I took the public transportation to work, and my husband was in a carpool to go to work. Later, when we started pooling our money and both incomes were coming in, we were able to purchase a car. In the mid-60s, I sought employment to get a job to help us along financially. The 1960s was the time that kind of came to be that if you wanted to save for home or you wanted a few finer things in life, one paycheck was no longer sufficient. So those were the times where you were starting to see many women go to work either part-time or full-time. I was fortunate to be able to work full-time and save, so so that when John did come home from the service, we were able to buy a home. I think that with two people working now, it's just a norm. But back in the 1960s, it wasn't the norm. And sometimes women got frowned upon if they went to work full time and left their children. Mostly people were getting babysitters. I was fortunate to have only family watch my children. And I think that with two people working, there was a lot less stress in a marriage, a lot less stress with being able to obtain a home and make a mortgage payment while still raising a nice family and giving them everything that you thought that they should have. And for us, that was a great step because kind of everything that we did in our life, we did it together. We saved together, we worked together for what we wanted in life. And that was very, very important. And that was kind of the norm in those days. Things were not like we need something special or we want something luxurious so we have to run to the bank to get a loan. In those days it wasn't like that. You actually saved the money, and when you had enough, then you went and purchased what you wanted. After we had our second child, it was a time when I could go look for a full job when the children became older. And I did get a full-time job, and I worked at it for many, many years, as did my husband. He did change jobs along the stream, and he became a bus company and that
operator.
job he held for a long, long time, and it brought him very, very many happy years, and it made a less stressful situation in our home because we were very fortunate to have good employment. And from there on in, we just had a very nice marriage, a very wonderful family life, and raised our two children to be what they are today. Our daughter has gone on to marry and provided us with 3 wonderful grandchildren. I had a very misfortunate thing happen, and is that something that I never ever thought would happen, and that was that my husband would leave me and go to heaven, and that entirely changed my life, and I miss him very terribly.